Brian, Erica, and Darren were going to be on the meeting, were they?
Yes, actually was just unmuting over here to let you know that we're waiting for Erica. She'll be here.
She's in the hallway.
She's in the hallway. Wonderful. And I don't see Darren yet, but he should be logging on momentarily. Thank you, Chaz. Dropping that in the chat.
Scott there with you, Brian? I really can't tell with the size of the picture.
Yep, Scott's here.
Excellent. Thank you. I thought he might be, but it's you guys look like they're sitting in the next stadium back.
Greg is doing the call. Great.
Ryan's here. Sorry?
Linda.
Oh. How did that happen?
Yeah, muted themselves.
There we go. We're gonna have to maybe we'll...
Morning, Darren.
Morning.
Good morning, Darren. We'll
Morning.
get started just a minute or two here.
Yeah, okay.
Darren, can we test your video? All right, there he is. Okay, you're legit. Thank you.
Brian,
We're set.
great. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll start with introductions. I'm Dale Stein, Chair. Darren?
Darren Hickling, Vice Chair.
Erica?
Erica Goodman, voting member.
Scott?
Scott Ryan, voting member, NYACD representative.
Dave? Was on. He was on a minute ago. Not on video, but we got him on audio. Okay.
That's right, Dale. Just as a reminder, the
I'm
executive
here.
orders.
I'm here, Dale.
Okay.
There he is. So the executive order has expired. So Dave is not a quorum member today, but be listening and can still engage with us. Just won't be able to motion, second, or vote on anything today.
Yeah, I went over with Dave with that a few minutes ago. That's good. He understands.
Great, thank you. Okay, excellent.
Introductions on your end, Brian.
Sure. I'm Brian Steinmuller, Assistant Director for the Soil and Water Conservation Committee. Go that one.
Ben Luskin, Region 5 AEA for the Hudson Valley and Long Island.
Abigail Edwards, Excelsior Fellow for the State Committee.
Judy Latrell, Division of Land and Water Resources here at the department.
Jeff Keogh, Agricultural Protection Unit, Department.
I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Walters to our group. Elizabeth Walters, our new Deputy Commissioner, who will be overseeing the Division of Land and Water Resources, working with the New York State Soil and Water Conservation Committee, Division of Animal Industry,
Correct.
as well as Plant Industry.
Correct.
Yeah, did I miss anything?
And then the breeding fund.
Oh, wonderful. So we're really pleased to have Elizabeth Walters joining our team. Elizabeth and I got to know each other pretty well during the Ag and Forestry Advisory Panel discussions of the Climate Action Council. So is fully aware of and engaged in the work that we're doing in the climate space, and of course, other programs and policies here at the State Committee as well. So welcome. Thank you.
Many familiar faces. Good to see you all.
Kyle Wallach, Farm Bureau. Dustin Lewis, Saratoga SWCD and NYS CDEA President.
Bethany Bisdu, Program Manager with the State Committee.
Right. You know what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go through other advisory members who may be joining us over the phone. So we have Ag and Markets well represented. How about DEC? Anybody on from DEC?
This is Julie Berlinski, New York State DEC, Division of Water.
Hi, Julie. Welcome. How about Department of State? All right. How about Department of Health?
Morning, Brian. This is Paul Kaczmarzyk from State Department of Health, Bureau of Water Supply Protection. Morgan is currently on maternity leave.
Oh, congratulations,
to a
Morgan.
nice, healthy boy last week.
Oh, that's wonderful. Great to hear. Thank you, Paul. Okay, and I know Stephanie Wojtowicz said that she was not able to make it from Department of State. So how about Cornell Cals? Anybody on from Cornell Cals?
Hi, Brian.
Everyone.
Sorry, I just wanted to chime in. This is Ashley from Department of State, Department of Health. Sorry.
All right, Ashley, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Great. Sorry. Hi, everyone. Julie Suarez from Cornell Cals. Brian could not make it today for us, so I'm here in his stead. Happy to be here.
Hi, Julie. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay, USDA NRCS.
Hi, this is Paula Bagley, representing NRCS for Blake Glover today. He's out in Detroit this week.
Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome, Paula. SUNY ESF. Okay, Cornell Cooperative Extension. Okay. We'll go through and we'll just do brief introductions for other staff that might be on the line. If you are on the line, staff of the State Committee, please unmute yourself and go ahead and introduce yourself to the group.
Good morning, everybody. This is Craig Albrecht, AIM Program Coordinator with Ag and Markets and the State Committee.
Welcome, Greg.
Good morning. This is Evan Kelly with the Ag Protection Unit.
Good morning, Evan.
Good morning. This is Ron Bush, CNMP Specialist with the State Committee.
Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Ryan Cunningham with the State Committee.
Good morning, Ryan.
All right, Ryan. Everyone, this is Tyler Knapp with the committee as well, Program Analyst.
Good morning, Tyler.
Good morning, everybody. PJ,
Go ahead.
Good morning, PJ. You sound like you're in the fishbowl again. All right. Did I also hear Brendan?
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Brendan Jordan, CNMP Specialist with the State Committee. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Brendan.
Scott Thickbaum, Regional Coordinator for the State Committee.
Good morning, Scott.
Lauren Przorski, EBM Program Manager for State Committee.
Good morning, Lauren. I'm scanning our attendance list as well. Are we missing anybody from the staff? I think we've got everyone. Okay. So I also want to welcome all of our Conservation District partners and all of the members of the public joining us here today as well. We won't be able to take the time to introduce everybody, but if your name is not visible in the attendance box in order to get you up on the list of attendees for the meeting minutes, please feel free to drop your name and your organization in the chat so that we can get everybody. Okay, Dale, back to you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Very good attendance. Thanks for participating. Review and approve minutes. To any additions or corrections, anyone?
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
The voting, Darren,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
approved. Thank you.
Can I just ask, Darren, can you please keep your video on for us for
Rules.
for open meetings? So thank you so much, Darren. Appreciate it. Okay.
Next is correspondence, staff updates, and a recap of September meeting. Brian.
Okay, so I don't have any official correspondence to discuss with the committee today. Here in the Albany office, there are a number of 2021 annual reports. We did hand those out last month as well, and I will be bringing a stack of those to the NYACD meeting tomorrow. So if you haven't seen that yet, please feel free here in the Albany office to grab a copy. I will say staff updates. We've been able to advance a couple of key critical staff members of the division that provide support to the committee. One would be our administrative assistant position that has been vacant for quite some time. We did receive resumes that we are currently reviewing, and we'll be setting up interviews for that position. So hopefully we'll be able to get somebody to fill that role here soon, and I'll have another update for the committee the next time we meet. Of course, that would be administrative support for the entire division, but certainly would assist us in all of our efforts here with the state committee. And of course, the executive director position for the state committee, you should have seen that was sent out earlier this month, and that opening has now closed, and HR will be submitting to us a list of qualified candidates to review. So I haven't seen that list yet, but it should be forthcoming, and I'll have more to report the next time we meet as well. Just a reminder that is it's a special assistant NS position, so even after we make a selection, it will take some time to get that through, the appointments process. So, throughout that time period, we'll, keep the committee informed and up to date as we move along on that. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, so I just want to, again, just recap September. Minutes are approved, but just to thank the Warren County Soil and Water District and all the partners of Warren County for an excellent meeting, first in-person meeting that we had since COVID, and we were able to have a business meeting in the morning to address some critical programs and reports, and then spend the majority of the day touring conservation projects and other types of programs that the Warren County Soil and Water District has been engaged in communities across Warren County. And just again, want to thank them publicly, and also all those involved. They had partners at every tour stop to talk to us about the projects and the relationship between them and the Soil and Water District. We focused a lot on urban agriculture, community conservation, and also within the SUNY Adirondack property, we're able to talk to John Dickinson from Ideal Dairy about their soil health efforts in production agriculture. So it was really a great event, and thanks to all who attended, as well as those who hosted the event for us. So again, we'd like to continue to do this at least annually, where we first select a regional coordinator who's willing and able to help us to develop a good meeting, a good tour, and working with conservation district or a group of districts to actually get out there and see some of the work that we're doing on an annual basis. Okay. I think, Dale, that concludes that part of the agenda, but I think I'm next as well. So next, I just wanted to also, continue the dialogue that we've been having with the state committee over the last 6 months or so to talk about the Soil Health and Climate Resiliency Act. Specifically, that act took effect in June, and we've had some discussions about the work that we're currently doing that fits very well with the act itself, but also some of the additional activities that the Soil Health Act, Climate Resiliency Act is, requiring us to undertake. So I wanted to get a little bit of direction from the committee today, have a little bit of a discussion over some of the elements of this act that we have to work toward specifically, and as I've talked about in the past, conducting stakeholder meetings and opportunities for public comment, as the act stipulates through current partnerships, as well as historically marginalized producers, not-for-profit, conservation, environmental organizations, and the environmental justice community. Another important provision of the act that we've done some work on already, but also would need to carry through, and that is the establishment of appropriate voluntary standards and objectives for soil health, soil quality. And also to remind folks that through chapter amendments, the commissioner and the state committee are each empowered to promulgate such rules and regulations, prescribe such forms as each shall deem necessary to effectuate the purpose of the act itself. So I wanted to also give the group an update on that and also ask for some direction. Taking that one by one though, first with the stakeholder meetings and engagement opportunities, certainly we've got a great forum here with public meetings of the state committee to undertake such activities. We also, of course, could develop individual or separate types of meetings and engagement with the public. Of course, it would include public notices as well as some targeted and strategic outreach to the organization stipulated by law. So I just wanted to pause on that and ask for any guidance and feedback from voting members, advisory members, staff here about which is the best way, most effective way to reach out to stakeholders in relation to soil health and climate resiliency. Also want to remind the group that we were able to have some public outreach meetings back in June with the expansion of the climate resilient farming program and learned a lot from a broad group of stakeholders that will help us inform the development of the next RFP. But on top of that, to make sure that we're fully compliant with the law, wanted to get a little bit of advice and guidance from the committee today.
I think it might be if we get a advisory members or even from the public who has a meeting that they would like some type of presentation on, you may have to consider that from a staff person do a presentation at that public meeting if someone requests it on top of our normal through electronic and other means.
Great suggestion. And we've been doing quite a bit of that, some outreach engagement with different groups upon request and invitation. So, certainly I think we are engaging with our advisory members and, our core partnership. But that is a really good suggestion. We could do more of that.
Is the idea that they would be in person, virtual, both?
Both.
Okay.
Actually, and the law is prescriptive on that. So,
Okay.
so in person, but also virtual options. So I think we could do something similar to what we have here.
Okay.
With immediate advisory, public noticing, making sure folks are also directly a part of like email communications and other means.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I know that's important.
Well, important and kind of this time of day doesn't work for everyone. So
Right.
how to make sure there's, especially for reaching out to underserved producers,
Yep.
how to engage at times of day and in places where they're at.
Gotcha. Right, so we might even consider doing some evening outreach meetings and events. Anybody else?
Is there a number you need to do?
No, it's not overly prescriptive in that regard, but the question was, is there a number of events? But I think this discussion today is timely because as we get into the winter months, I certainly would like to start engaging in both virtual and in-person, meetings in this regard. And, I think that might be helpful for farmers and for some of our partners.
Is there going to be an email address or anything put out where people who may have questions about this would like to email in and ask a question?
That's a good idea, Dale. We established a separate email address when the Ag and Forestry panel was active. That was an email address that was monitored by a number of staff people. We could do the same. So because it's not just about holding meetings, but also making sure there's an avenue for direct public comment in relation to these program areas. We could do something like that too.
So essentially be like a public comment period then.
Right. And again, the law is not prescriptive as how long that comment period needs to be open, but we could, set such terms or, just establish the means of communication for public input.
Julie Suarez has their hand up.
Okay.
Just, yes. Yeah.
Julie, go ahead.
Hey everyone, I wasn't quite sure what the etiquette was, so I didn't want to interrupt, but I did just
No
want to
worries.
say I popped in a note in the chat and said that our New York Soil Health Initiative Team Summit, we changed it from November to December 13th because we had an internal scheduling conflict. But I don't know, Brian, if that might be a helpful venue to kind of have some of these discussions. We do have a draft agenda, but I'm sure we could talk to Joseph and try to make sure that we have some additional space and time to talk about this at that meeting if you'd like to. And that'll be virtual too, so everybody can come.
Great. Yeah, no, I think that's a great opportunity for sure. And I think just even, without intentionally doing so, I think there will be a lot of great information that comes from that meeting that we'd be able to bring into our public discussions here.
Plan on having several of our faculty members give kind of lightning talks on the latest soil science and R&D, but very brief talks, so it won't be overwhelming and potentially difficult to consume on Zoom. So, but there's still space on the agenda, so that might be fun.
Great. Julie, thank you for that suggestion. Others?
Is this something where we could provide like a brief write-up to soil and water conservation districts that they could include in like their newsletters or something to get the word out to producers?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. You guys got, good email connections at the local level. I think we should definitely work together on that.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Especially once you get an email address, established, that might be something to think about so people have access to that and they can submit questions.
Yeah, something we could ask the districts to post on their websites or Facebook pages or any of their public media.
Great, absolutely. Thank you. All right, take any other suggestions on this and then we'll move on to the next topic. Okay, so the next is, and we've had some really exciting conversations about this and some presentations from Joe, Ansley, and others about the soil health characterization report, but the next would be the establishment of a voluntary soil health standard or goal, aspirational goal, if you will. Definitely think we could get into the weeds, no pun intended here today on this discussion, but just wanted to, briefly introduce this topic again to the group and take in any suggestions or comments that you might have as to how we might establish such a voluntary standard for soil health and quality. And certainly, I think there's going to be lots of opportunities to, have some really in-depth technical discussions at the technical advisory committee, as well as, just through advisory members and partnership discussions and meetings, and bringing things back to the committee for consideration. But I'll pause there and ask for any thoughts or questions or comments.
Have you thought about how you would like quantify the standard? Like you're looking at like an acreage or total soils saved or something?
We have, but I think those are great questions because what is it? Is it on a regional scale? Is it on a local farm scale? Is it on a watershed scale? How much emphasis do we put in actual measurement of improvement over time, versus adoption of practices and continual evaluation of practices at the farm scale? The soil health characterization report again combines, the inherent properties and qualities of various soils together with the management of those soils. So both kind of a more steady, kind of long-term indicator together with, dynamic indicators. I think that report really does set us up for these continued discussions of how we might be able to use that to establish a voluntary standard for soil health here in New York State. But I think beyond that, it's pretty well wide open.
I think you might want to contact the Western New York Soil Health Group and the Soil Health Group through Cornell to get their opinions on what it should be also.
Absolutely great suggestion, Dale. I know that Western New York Soil Health Group has been at this a long time and done some incredible work with the farmers that have joined that effort and soil health testing and trends over time. That's a great suggestion. And also just by way of that suggestion, thinking about how it could be done at a regional scale too.
Yeah, I think about there's certainly the soil health characteristics. What are the other pieces that would encourage, continuation of programs, more adoption of practices? What are economic? What are some of those other pieces that can be tracked to not just look at the soil, but the kind of surrounding benefits?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because we've said it before, and I just underlined it twice in my notebooks, adoption, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about implementing practices, but helping farmers to adopt those practices in long-term soil health goals. Thank you. Other thoughts, comments, questions? And like I said, this is just kind of a very broad level discussion, but if there are thoughts and comments, you're always welcome to provide those to me, to the staff here at the state committee. We'll make sure we bring those forward in future discussions. I think I might have just spoke over somebody though, just took their phone off mute.
Just me waiting for you to finish, Brian.
Okay, Dale, go for it.
No, I didn't want to step on you. Thank you. Yeah, anybody else who has ideas on that, get comments to Brian. We'll have to work forward as we go on that. Next on our list is Technical Advisory Committee, Bethany and Ron.
Yes, so I will just kind of do a little introduction and then hand things over to Ron. But We had a technical advisory committee meeting back on August 9th. It was held virtually. We started the meeting with a virtual BMP tour of projects that were completed through the AEM Tier 4 cost share track, the Climate Resilient Farming Program, as well as the Ag Non-Point Source Program. So I want to reiterate a special thanks to our districts that agreed to participate in that meeting. Danielle Singer from Tioga County Soil and Water, Brian Skorlik from Dutchess County Soil and Water, and Alice Halloran from Essex County Soil and Water all agreed to participate and spoke to the group about their projects that they were able to complete through our various programs. At that meeting, we also had a really great discussion around the development of a new best management practice system that we hope to be able to add to our Ag BMP catalog. And to talk a little bit more about that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Ron Bush.
And Ron, you can take the presentation and share your screen, correct? I think he's working on it now. And while Ron is presenting, we'll mute here in Albany.
Thanks, Bethany. And full disclosure, I had COVID a couple weeks ago, and it's obliterated my respiratory system. So I've done everything I could this morning to ease the coughing. I'm like a cow in late winter with pneumonia. So this won't be real articulate, but don't be distracted here. So as Bethany mentioned, we've been looking at for quite a while ways to improve the agricultural environmental management program, as well as our New York State Soil and Water Conservation Committee funding programs. And we're always doing this, and this is just one part where we've sort of spent a lot of time with looking at our goals, looking at the tools that we have in our toolbox, whether that's planning initiatives or the agricultural BMP systems, which is what you'll see here on the screen. So New York State developed and maintains this agricultural best.
Ron, I just want to pause right quick. You've got it in your notes mode. If you want to change that display to presenter mode, I think that'd be easier for folks. There we go. We're getting there. Sorry to interrupt you.
How do I change that once I click? You're still seeing notes here, right?
Yes, go to display settings on top, and you should see drop down.
Oh boy.
Hit it again, what you just did. Okay, now display settings up on top. There you go.
And
yeah, go ahead,
try that. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Ron. Sorry to interrupt you.
So, not sure where we left off here, but basically, the approach we use is to identify, plan, and treat resource concerns with a collection of best management practices, and those are organized within these agricultural BMP systems. So what we're here to talk about today is a new BMP system that we're proposing to the state committee for approval, and that's called the short-term waste collection and transfer system. The concepts behind this system are very similar to a waste storage and transfer system, but there's some program rules, requirements, guidelines, and some considerations that we've incorporated into this new system to allow planners and producers to enter conservation at different stages and address resource concerns that are around the farmstead, as well as some of those resource concerns and opportunities for better nutrient utilization out in the fields. So this came about through many months and years of looking at constraints and barriers to conservation, some way heavier than others, but on the slide here are just a couple examples. So traditionally, right now, the New York State funding programs require conservation or comprehensive nutrient management plan or a full 590 plan, nutrient management plan, to plan and implement waste NRCS waste storage facilities, the 313 standard. So if there's areas around the state where there aren't CNMP planners, certified planners, or there's funding restrictions, or even barriers with the producers, that it's overwhelming to go right from maybe zero, no plan, no real communication or work with soil and water districts or planners, all the way to the gold standard of, full conservation with long-term storages and the full 590 with all of its really important environmental risk assessments. So when that happens, conservation kind of stalls. It can scare producers. It may not be appropriate for it, and it might not even be feasible on a monetary basis. Some CNMPs may require a payment of, let's just pick a range of like $5,000 to $8,000 to get a plan developed. And for a large farm, looking at their business plan and all of the AIM tenets, that might make a lot of sense, whether something comes from it or not, whether that's technical assistance, changes in cultural practices, or structural practices. But for some of the smaller farms, spending $8,000 on a plan when we really don't know what the end goal or what's going to come from that plan is one of those barriers. So we have some tools already developed in our toolbox, and that's some Tier 3A plans. So one is a Tier 3A farmstead plan, and the other is a Tier 3A nutrient management core plan. And we'll get into some of those details later on, but we've got opportunities. We have existing standards, we have BMPs, we have all of the concepts necessary to come out and work with these producers. But there's that restriction that I talked about in the beginning of it might not be appropriate or feasible in certain areas of the state for certain producers. So really our goals are still all the same with our environmental targets and resource concerns. And I'll get into some areas throughout the presentation where we expand some of those resource concerns, and we have built in ways to address those in this system as well. But the main goal is to work with those producers that may be daily spread farms or crop farms that are importing agricultural materials or organics. And there may be a resource concern at the farmstead. So like this picture, stockpiling manure, they don't have a place to go with it. They're generating manure every day, but maybe don't have a spreader or a nutrient management plan or a target for those fields. And there may be runoff concerns like the picture on the bottom right, where those piles, have nearby sensitive areas and nutrients are being lost. So the goal here is to properly collect, transfer, and store those wastes and help facilitate really the tenets of the NM core plan, which is the 4 R's: right source, right place, right timing, and right application method. And, just going over again, these are for the livestock and crop farms that haven't met the CAFO animal size threshold. So that's just a statement. Those CAFO farms or large dairies that have CNPs can already do everything we're talking about in their existing plans and in our implementation programs. Just a quick example of some of the farms. I'm not going to go through them all, but we're really looking at, some of those smaller beef farms, goat farms, horse facilities. That's been kind of a tough one to bring AIM out to, generating horse manure. Where is it going? Do we have fields for that, or is it an export material? You also have, the crop farms. We work with a lot of cropland farmers that import poultry manure or other materials, and where do those go before they are applied to the field? And again, really targeting the farms that may not have a nutrient management plan or an outdated nutrient management plan. So we'd re-engage, reassess, and see if there's opportunities to, collect and transfer these materials to short-term storage and plan for the utilization out in the fields. Just a couple examples that you may find out there for sources of manure and where runoff concerns may exist. We've got, young stock calf hutches. We have a barnyard on the bottom left that's been overwhelmed because, we may have a covered livestock heavy use area runoff management system, but we don't have a place for where those materials go when they're scraped up and cleaned. Your standard waste transfer areas and temporary piling areas like the picture on the top right. So hopefully we can find places and systems to help producers kind of collect all these nutrients, know what those nutrients are, and then find which fields they should go to down the line. So this system is based on utilizing the Waste Storage Facility 313 standard, and we'll talk about a really important policy or program rule or initiative that is necessary to facilitate this system. It's really focused on those smaller farms, smaller stacking pads, tanks, and other types of manure collection areas. And you'll keep hearing this principle or program rule of 60 days of storage capacity. And we'll get into that a little further. On the bottom right is just an example of one I helped install and work on years ago, but this is kind of what we may see this looking like on many farms out here. A really good place to take those materials, eliminate the runoff concerns, and also do some management on the material consistency by excluding precipitation and moisture. And there was some confusion, and when we were presenting this with partners and our staff about what about composting facilities, the 317 standard, really, so we have the tools in the Ag BMP catalog to plan and implement composting facilities, which are really like waste treatment systems or manure treatment systems. But a 60-day storage duration with materials being generated every day potentially doesn't allow us that proper storage duration and environment for biological and microbial decomposition. So that one, it would be excluded from this system and be implemented in a different one. This is a really important slide because it's going to show you the levels of planning that are options for planners and producers to look at short-term waste collection and transfer systems. So the first one would be a combination of the 3A Farmstead plan, as I mentioned before, and an NM Core plan. And this is the NM Core plan is a Tier 3A that the state committee has already, fully vetted, understand the concepts and the goals, and allowed us to offer that in the AEM base program as a Tier 3A plan. And we'll get into some of the real benefits of those plans when they're specifically applied to the 4Rs. Key thing here is, take note of the certification level. That is a certified crop advisor, which is different than the ones below. So an AIM certified planner or CNMP planner is required for full 590 planning. Another thing that is in this BMP system, which we may or may not show going forward, but it's really important. There's some considerations and concepts in here that we would fully identify, support with training, and work with our, to make sure that producers understand the opportunities and limitations of this system and whether is this appropriate. So we may start down the planning road and find out, hey, what we're finding out here is that short-term storage, transferring the storage, although it may be beneficial, there may be a better opportunity or need for longer-term storage. So we want to know where this is appropriate and where another BMP system may be necessary. Just a quick slide here to talk about all of the good things in the Conservation Practice Standard 590 nutrient management, and then where we've pulled some of those really foundational nutrient management, best management practices in the NM core plan. So this, just picture yourself or picture a farm that doesn't have a nutrient management plan. They don't really know their different sources of manure sources. They don't know how much volume they're actually generating in a numerical value annually or monthly. They haven't taken those manures and sampled them, so they don't know the NP and K and the value of those manures, and also associate them with application techniques that allow you to maybe capture some of those nutrients, like nitrogen, for example, or you may lose it to volatilization. That's just one quick example of that. So the NM core plan brings all of those nutrients together with all of their values. It requires a spreader calibration. So now when the farmer or producer is applying that manure, they know the rate that's going down. Planners can work with the producer to adjust those rates and fully understand how much NP and K they're supplying to those crops. In addition to that, there'd be, look at all of those field characteristics that are really important, like, the nearby sensitive areas, whether that's a water course or a little lake or pond or wells. That's all in the NM core plan, as well as, O&M and all of that stuff there. So this is just a slide showing part of our pathway to developing these and what our goals were. We worked really heavily with associating the practices in the program rules to align themselves with the concepts and, trends and manure management and some of the off gases that are found in the IPCC resources. And we'll take a look at those in a second here. But we wanted to take full stock of not only the water quality concerns, soil quality concerns, as well as air quality resource concerns. So this slide here is just kind of showing you a very basic and, front and center view of how manures are classified and how those interact with different management styles or structures, and some of the things that we can expect in a very basic and general trend is when it comes to air quality and sorry. So simply, we're looking at those material compositions. So I'm really transitioning from the nutrient management stuff to the air quality stuff here. We're going to encourage folks to look at the material composition, whether it's solid, semi-solid, or liquid, and, maybe separate those materials and manage them in different ways, as well as protect them from, precipitation, rainfall, as we mentioned before, and preserve aerobic conditions and try to minimize anaerobic conditions, which will increase methane production. So all of these considerations, we spend a lot of time looking at these. This is where the storage duration comes into play. It's where temperature comes into play. So storing manures during the cold months, that temperature threshold that drives methane production is reduced. And during the summer, we'd be storing nutrients for maybe in their most sensitive times, but that's also when we have the most access to fields, like our hay cuttings that you may be able to get to every 30 or 40 days. So really, taking temperature out of play for the most part when it comes to storing those materials. Then the storage duration, the breakdown of the microbial breakdown of those materials and organics, especially the carbon, increases over time. So capping it to 60 days of storage duration, one, allows us to kind of plan and set a limit on how much decomposition we're going to get with those materials, but it also aligns our nutrients, concentration, and storage capacity with that NM core plan so that we're not storing a bunch of materials and exceeding the limits of the NM core plan. So here's just a quick table where we're kind of pointing towards the IPCC guidelines and where our program rules, are really defended or the trends that we're looking at. So we've got the 60-day storage capacity. And as you see from the table, that's right in between the 1 month and 3 months, so 9% conversion factor there. We're really looking at those solid, semi-solid, and liquid materials and managing them separately. So, if it's a liquid material, whether it's, slurry from a dairy barn or milk house waste, that's already an anaerobic condition. So, we might have opportunities to protect that from greenhouse gas, off-gassing, and methane production, but we can maybe separate that and not make a solid or semi-solid material more liquidy by incorporating those materials. So that's baked into the system. It'll be trained. We'll try to, look at those materials and set up plans with the producer to manage those separately. And then in here, the planner makes the judgment on what is solid or semi-solid. Here's a couple percentages that are in these guidelines, and Cornell nitrogen guidelines has a slightly higher number of 18% solids. Same with a federal standard 318 short-term standard from NRCS, which says plus or minus 25. So, there's some interpretation there, especially during different times of the year and different sources. So really take note that roofs and covers are required for solid and semi-solid systems. We've never required a roof and covers for a waste storage facility before. That's unique to this system. And the roof and covers is not required. It's optional, but it's not required for the liquid systems, as I mentioned before. Just a quick highlight here, the stuff we've been talking about. Overall, we feel that this system is aligning with all of the work that we're doing at different stages in the AEM and planning process. And we feel like it's going to allow a huge opportunity and pathway to conservation, whether it's runoff concerns at the farmstead or some of those concerns out in the field, as well as incorporating the new and more ever-present air quality goals and criteria. So that's really the foundation of this system that we've been working on. And, we thank our partners at Cornell and NRCS, the Soil and Water Conservation Districts. There's others I'm probably leaving out of here, especially the Technical Advisory Committee members that have spent a lot of time with us over the last year and a half, kind of dissecting these principles and all these different management areas, and allow us to go back and relook at stuff and fine tune how this would be set up and managed. So, thanks to everyone over time, especially my colleagues I went through this really quick, but they've heard me spin some yarns that have gone on for a long time. So this system is not possible without a new modified NRCS waste storage facility policy. So not only are we bringing the BMP system to the state committee for approval, we're also bringing this 313 policy as a program initiative that would allow us to plan up, implement, and certify 313 storages with this policy and the BMP system guidelines and rules, specifically with those farms that have a 3A farmstead and a 3A nutrient management core plan. The other two planning tracks that you saw on the first slide are good to go with full 590. So really this policy is just appropriate for that first planning track. And that document was shared. I'm not going to go through it all today, but here's kind of the highlights. It's bringing in, it's bringing in a policy that allows us to manage nutrients with the NM core plan, not the 590 or the CNP, which is currently required in the NRCS 313 waste storage facility standard. 1 second here. So in that document that you saw, there's some modifications to certain areas of that standard. Everything that is structural or an environmental consideration at the farmstead for a waste storage facility is the exact same. What we're really doing is just carving out that difference in planning for just those certain systems on those certain farms with that level of planning. So New York State licensed professional engineer would use that 313 standard. They would accompany that with this policy, which would give them some language and requirements and standards and specifications unique to just our funding programs that would define where this condition is appropriate, where it's applied, the storage period and duration of 60 days. The NM Core Plan is a guiding method to manage those nutrients that are removed, as well as the storage duration volume, again, to the 60 days. So they would just pair this with that 313, include it in our procurement records, and be able to implement these waste storage facilities on these farms. So one part that we've really highlighted in that BMP system is that this is for a New York State Soil and Water Conservation Committee funding program, planning and implementation. So we can plan these up in the AEM planning process. We can also implement them in the implementation programs, the funding sources like Ag 9-Point Source and such, but they would not be allowable, or they wouldn't be eligible for cost share with the NRCS or federal funding programs. So we want producers to know that. We want engineers to know that, planners, as well as our partners to know that, yes, New York State is taking a stab at bringing conservation out to these farms and trying to get some of these, the benefits of nutrient management planning that can be a little bit restricted under the 313 policy as it's currently drafted with that full CNMP requirement. So brought to you guys today, is this consideration where you would be approving this policy? And if we have to tweak some language later on or clean up some stuff, we will do that. But it's really the concepts in that policy and the short-term waste collection and transfer system. And on the right here is just kind of the big highlights there. And it would by approving these, it would also approve an amendment or an update to the New York State Ag BMP Systems Catalog, as well as updating any standard documents that we use in our funding programs, whether it's planning or implementation, like the guidance manual, RFPs, procurement policies. That's what's on the table today. And before I turn it over completely, we've also, in anticipation of approval of this system, we've already set up a training session at the Water Quality Symposium that's going to be offered here at the turn of the year, where we can introduce this to the districts and our partners and really spend time with them to know where this is used, where the opportunities are, and where those new rules and guidelines and considerations and criteria come into play. So we're hoping that, we're seeking approval, and we're hoping that this is a very useful tool to many of the producers and planners out there that at the soil and water conservation districts, and can, provide a pathway to many different levels of conservation out there, as well as meeting many different areas of our resource concerns: water quality, soil quality, and air quality, along with all of the other SWAPO plus H&E resource concerns. So I'll pause there. Brian, if you want to help, clean up any areas that I went fast through, or corrections for the state committee.
Ron, that was incredible. Take a deep breath, drink lots of water. I really just thank you so much for your leadership and work on this. As Ron said, we've been working on this for quite some time with our partners, internal staff discussions, And, we could have been ready to present this to you all last month, but decided let's spend the time that we really need to spend on this and bring it to your attention here today. As Ron mentioned, really the critical aspect of this is the nutrient management core provisions that would accompany the implementation of such a practice system. And just to remind this group that a couple of years ago, I don't know exact date, but we discussed and deliberated on the nutrient management core as a planning tool for conservation districts, for conservation partners to be working on, farms that aren't, ready or have the capacity to do full 590 or comprehensive nutrient management plans. Also really important to point out, Elizabeth might remember this as well, in a lot of discussion we had at the Ag and Forestry Advisory Panel, the subgroup was to develop tools and options for farmers, one size fit none kind of thing, where if we've got the ability to bring forward different manure management options to address not only water quality, but also greenhouse gas emissions, we should be doing that. Even if it means we can't adequately account for the emission reductions of various systems, we know that this system has got greenhouse gas benefits in storing manure in more of an aerobic condition, dry stack type of short-term duration. So thought it was really opportune to bring this forward to the committee at this point in time. Is that okay, Ron? All right, thank you. Dale, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're all right. Questions, comments, does everybody understand what we're looking for? You want one motion and approval for the whole system, short-term manure collection and treatment system, Brian?
Yep, I think that would be appropriate and in keeping with the documents that we made available to the committee ahead of schedule, albeit it was late last week, but all contained in the updated agenda here. Yep, one motion is.
Any questions, anyone, comments at all before we do the motion?
Has there been any measuring of dry stack manure as far as methane emissions versus covered flare systems like Dale's?
Yeah, so I think, Ron, you had a chart there that had some coefficients for certain methane emission factors with dry stack manure. It's not exact, it's coefficient, it's modeled, it's not something that we can necessarily meter through a system like Dale's, with a cover.
There's too much variable with it.
That's true, but it does indeed. And Ron, if you want to just, maybe you can answer the question a little bit better than I can there, just with another quick summary of that chart.
Yeah, so this is just one chart of showing kind of like the broad sweeping trends for several different types of manure management here. There's way more nuance and material included in those SWCC guidelines, different studies, different models, experiments, charts. So they are looking at a bunch of stuff, whether it's specifically so right here, for example, we can see a dry lot, which is basically indicative of like a livestock heavy use area or barnyard. There's some caveats to that, but that's a threshold, daily spreading, solid storage with a cover, and flare, uncovered, anaerobic lagoons, very similar in New York. We'd call those, storages, but very similar action there, as well as liquid and slurry and pit storages. That's really where, New York State storages fall within. And there's some other, there's other tables that, we could show and bring up that is showing methane conversion volumes, but really the trend is solid storage in aerobic conditions significantly decreases methane production. You may have more nitrous oxide in that setting, but that's the trend. It's really like long-term storage in anaerobic conditions is going to lead towards methane production. and dry storage anaerobic is going to decrease methane production, but you might have more nitrous oxide. So we studied a bunch of these. We continue to reference those IPCC guidelines, and also just for the state committee and all of our partners to be aware of, we are modeling different setups and different tools that will allow us to look at different scenarios on these farms. So, we can take a farm that has barnyards, it has stacking areas, it may have some liquid storage, and their fields, and kind of get a sense of what gases and volumes are being produced on those farms, and then see where the BMP systems that are brought out there may change some of those. So, we can target different management practices. We can target, like in here, separating materials and managing them differently, and go from start to finish to the field and see field applications and considerations and factors out there. So we're looking at farmstead scenarios, field scenarios, and then how they mix, like on this slide, over time on different farms and different systems, and what you can expect for. So as Brian mentioned, this one, we were really targeting bringing out nutrient management to those farms that don't have plans yet. We were bringing conservation out to those farmsteads that have runoff concerns, pairing those together, and then taking that first step of not only appropriate aligning with our nutrient management plan, the lowest threshold in the NM core, but look at all this cool stuff that producers and planners can consider as far as air quality and different gases, where they're produced, and how to maybe influence those. New York and the Climate Action Plan, there's a lot of goals and challenges there, but this has allowed us, this activity of planning these makes us feel much better to look at all of our BMPs across the board and see where they're stacking up and where there's opportunities, what are the drivers, and where can we mitigate some of those going forward. So that was a long answer. Maybe it didn't answer it specifically, but
and again, Scott, just also to answer your question, we've got a lot of retrofits to do, right? We know we've got a lot of anaerobic storages out there that we've been working with farms to implement over the years for nutrient management. That wouldn't stop. This would allow another option for farmers that need to go beyond daily spread, and need to store manure, or maybe they already are, but the way they're doing it isn't in keeping with nutrient management, water quality objectives. How can we help them to store that manure for nutrient management, water quality, while also addressing greenhouse gas emissions? Again, some of the things that we learned in discussions with the various participants of our Ag and Forestry Advisory Panel was that, we not only need to look at retrofit, but also have to look at how we implement storages in the future. If you recall, we have had some good discussions here with this group about how we do that moving forward with our programs. This provides a tool for certain types of farms to be able to do it in a short-term duration, together with all of the other factors that Ron said. Storing aerobic conditions mitigates for methane, but also the shorter term you do, the better off you will be, right? If you're not storing a load of nutrients and manure and waste during the hottest summer months, for example, if you've got ability to get it out to hay fields and other things, that the NM core plan will prescribe, then again, we're reducing our emissions while meeting those nutrient management goals.
Questions, anyone? More discussion?
Cost effectiveness will be the key though.
Yes.
Facilities.
That's right. And we might have skipped over that. Cost effectiveness was something that Scott just mentioned. Again, these standards could have been applied in the past. In some cases they are, but with that really strict requirement for CNMPs. Anything that Bethany can elaborate on this, but anything that's proposed as a 313 standard, even if it's that type of standard, would have to now have a full CNMP that would have to be updated annually and continual. And that's great for farmers that can do that, but it's cost prohibitive to many. So I think we're also trying to address cost effectiveness with a system like this, primarily around that planning component. Great questions. Discussion.
Any others?
Oh, Ron, I muted him.
Oh, sorry, Ron, you're muted. We're unmuting you.
I can't unmute him.
We can't unmute you. Ron, if you're talking to us, you're muted. Oh, there he goes. Oh, maybe not.
Go up to the side, up to the where it says you're sharing your screen, and then, yeah, there you go. That works too.
We'll give
Okay.
Ron, okay. There
I
you
was
go.
just going to mention cost effectiveness. Sorry here. That was one player with the roofs and covers. So not only would the roofs and covers maybe not increase performance in that storage and provide us benefits out there, you know, certainly it would provide keeping clean water clean, but the cost, the added cost of that roof structure and the benefits achieved, we didn't want to require that because that would be a barrier. Without much benefit. So it's still an option if a producer wants that and they say, I really like the idea of, you know, if I'm going to do one of these that's small and everything that we're learning and setting up here to put a roof on.
Good point. Thank you.
Okay, need a motion to approve the short-term manure collection and treatment system, the new short-term manure collection and treatment system.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Here.
Moved and seconded. Go to voting. Darren?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. Thanks, Ron. A lot of work went into this.
Yes, thank you so much.
Next on our agenda is Bethany with the Ag Non-Point Source.
That's why we're doing it now.
So I'm actually going to let Tyler take the mic first to run us through a program status report.
All right, thanks, Bethany. 1 second. Let me fire up my screen here. All right, which one are you guys seeing?
We're seeing the right one.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, yep, that's it.
That's good?
Perfect.
Excellent. Okay. So thanks, Bethany. I'm going to go through, I know it's been probably a little while since we've done like a data analysis kind of program update stuff. So I don't know if everybody kind of remembers this. So we have a couple tables, and then I kind of did a deep dive on some BMPs a little bit just to kind of spice things up a little bit. So Ag Non-Point Source, 7 active rounds with a total contract amount of just over $108 million. So I'm focusing on the bottom line for the most part. I did split out the different active rounds that you guys can see. So if there are some questions, feel free to ask. So of those active rounds, they include 337 contracts across the state. There's just over $10 million pending for 33 contracts in round 27. There are 146 active contracts, and those are at various stages across the state, and that's for all of the 7 rounds. And the total for that is just over $52 million. Districts have completed 151 contracts totaling just about $45 million. Any specific questions on that slide? Okay, we are going to jump into kind of what I'm calling the BMP deep dive a little bit. So for this example, I took cover crops specific to Ag Non-Point, and I did it for CRF as well. So we can do a little bit of a comparison after the CRF one. And essentially what I did is I well, actually, I'll go through the basics first. So this is program history for Ag Non-Point Source. So we're looking at just shy of 68,000 acres of cover crops implemented across the state. And that's for 27 counties or 154 HUC 12 watersheds. So to break it down a little bit further, I displayed the density of implementation, which is the map that you're seeing on the screen. And that's per HUC 12, the watershed, across the entire state. So what I did is, if you can see the background, I actually overlaid that data set onto the 2016 land cover data set. And what I'm pulling out specifically is what I want everyone to pay attention to is the kind of the lighter areas, the hay and pasture and the cultivated crops. So the yellow and the light green. So what does this show, right? Okay, so what we're showing is implementation is higher on high density ag areas, which, yeah, makes sense. That's good to know. We're not doing it in urban areas, but you never know. But it is also showing cover crop adoption tends to favor watersheds with immediate adjacent water bodies, such as the Finger Lakes, some Lake Ontario, and even some Lake Erie down there. So it was kind of interesting to see that projection a little bit there. What we also can kind of tell from this is some urban areas might be influencing cover crop adoption in the central region, but it is really kind of hard to differentiate that between maybe those water bodies themselves doing the influencing. So kind of just an interesting approach just to see the densities and where projects are going. I can do this for a whole bunch of different BMPs, but we'll pick away and get some on the docket for next time. Bethany, that is all I have. If there's any questions?
Actually, I just have one. Can you clarify, is this all the projects that have been completed or that are currently under, like, active, ongoing?
Great question. This is strictly completed. So anything that we have closed out, there likely is a lot more in the dock here ready to go. So this map will be ever changing.
Great, thank you. And you mentioned that you could do this for other practices, Tyler. I think I was over-reading in some of the emails here that maybe buffers and some other practices that we've been talking a lot about, could also be displayed this way.
Yes, absolutely. Wide variety that we could do.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'll stop there and then I'll start resharing when we do CRF.
Thanks again, Tyler.
All right, so shall we move into amendments, I guess? So there are three time extension amendments that were submitted for Ag Non-Point Source contracts.
Okay.
Yep. And Abigail's sharing on the screen our summary report of the amendments that were requested. Folks in the room also have a copy of our summary report. Our first amendment was submitted by the Seneca County Soil and Water Conservation District for a round 25 contract that is currently set to end in February of 2023. The district is looking to extend the contract out to December 31st of 2024. The reason for this request is stated here on the screen and on the summary report. PJ Emmerich, who is the, sorry, there's a typo there. He's the Region 2 AEA, supports this request and refers to the state committee. Are there any questions for myself or for PJ regarding this request?
If no questions or comments, then motion to approve, please.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. You go to voting. Darren?
Yes.
Erica?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. Next.
All right, our next time extension request comes to us from Madison County Soil and Water Conservation District, also for a round 25 contract. They are looking for a 1-year extension for a new end date of February 20th, 2024. Again, the reason for their request is stated here on the summary report. This request has been reviewed and is supported by Scott Fickbaum, Region 3 AEA, but referred to this state committee. Does anyone have any questions for myself or for Scott regarding this time extension request?
If no questions, motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. We'll go to voting. Darren?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. Next.
Our last amendment comes to us from Montgomery County Soil and Water, also for a round 25 contract. They are also looking to extend to February 20th, 2024. The reason for their request is noted here in the summary report. Scott Fickbaum, Region 3 AEA, supports this request but refers to the state committee for approval. Any questions regarding this one?
I'll just comment, Scott, that you probably should abstain from this one. Excellent. So Dale, you would round out our quorum and be voting on this one.
Yeah, I will do that. No other questions or comments, anyone? Motion to approve, please.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll go to voting. Darren?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Approved. Thank you. Anything else? Point source?
Yep, just to, I guess, I want to give the committee a brief update on where we are with round 28 and round 29. For round 28, we are still waiting to make awards on those projects. So those awards are pending, but hopefully will be coming out very soon. As soon as we are able to officially announce those awards, we will start the plan of work and contracting process for those and try to get them moving as quickly as possible. Just as a heads up note, when we do make those awards, the contracts will start on the date that is indicated on the award letter. For round 29, that RFP is currently under development. We will be discussing, it at our next technical advisory committee meeting, which is scheduled for November 1st. So at that meeting, we will be figuring out a timeline for that round, and in doing so, we're going to attempt to be as considerate as possible of districts' workloads as well as other funding opportunities that may be out there at the same time. We will also be finalizing the available funding that will be offered through the round 29 RFP. In this fiscal year's budget, the Ag Non-Point source line was appropriated $20 million. Approximately $2.75 million of that will need to be carved out before we can kind of figure out the available funding. We also need to factor in how much funding will be needed for the AEM based program as well. So more to come on those. Going back to Tyler's report really quick on the round 27 contracts, I made a note to mention that just the other day, several more contracts were executed. So we are currently working on getting those in the database and updated accordingly. So those will show up in our next month's report. But those are moving along, and most contracts have come back to us from districts signed and are still kind of working through the process. So hopefully by next month, we'll have almost all of those in the active column.
Ooh.
Cross our fingers. Any questions from anybody?
Thank you, Bethany and Tyler.
Thank you.
Our next one is the CRF program with Abigail and Tyler.
Yeah, sure. I think we'll model ag non-point source and have Tyler share the database findings from there, and then we'll move on to a status report.
Okay. Are we looking at the right screen again?
Everything looks
Yep,
good.
looks great.
We're good? Okay, weird. All right, so CRF, similar thing, go right into the database stuff. 4 active rounds with a total contract amount of approximately $9.5 million, and that's across 104 contracts. Again, I'm going off the bottom line. There are no pending contracts for CRF. There are 66 active contracts valued at just under $7 million. And districts have completed 29 contracts across the 4 rounds, implementing just over $2.2 million in best management practices. Jump into the deep dive if this wants to switch. There we go. Again, so this is a similar analysis to the ag non-point source. Again, for cover crops, CRF has implemented just over 20,000 acres in cover crops across 12 counties or 37 HUC 12s. Again, I took the implemented densities and overlaid it on the land cover data set so we could kind of do that comparison. And kind of what we can see so far is we're really following a similar pattern to ag non-point source. Adoption tends to follow the water bodies, maybe some urban influence in some situations, and definitely centralized in those high ag density areas. And then what I kind of took from this a little bit is, well, how do we compare them side by side? And Abigail informed me that some of the folks don't have this last slide because I may have added it last minute. Sorry about that. But I wanted to just do a quick comparison to kind of show that what is really important is we're actually seeing implementation or adoption kind of building in different areas or on top of or in addition to some of those low density areas that may have been happening at ag non-point. So it's kind of interesting to see how it might be building off each other in that sense, but it is good to see that we're actually doing it in different areas as well. So, and it's kind of that short and sweet. Are there any questions?
That's great, because that was kind of one of my questions, Tyler, is how, kind of seeing them side by side, and thank you so much for that slide. And just also point out that, we've had a lot of adoption of cover crops through ag non-point source for water quality purposes. And certainly over the years, ag non-point was a resource that just, had more funding available, right? So some of the larger cover crop soil health practice or projects proposals under CRF weren't as viable as they are under ag non-point. I think we're also going to see that change over the years, starting with the next RFP and more funding available for soil health implementation program under CRF. But to point out how important this practice system is for both water quality and climate resiliency. And when I say resiliency, I don't only mean emission reduction, sequestration, but certainly adaptation and resiliency as well. So really interesting to see it side by side. I also point out a little bit more practice adoption right around the urban center of Buffalo, for example. It's kind of a neat thing to see under CRF.
Is there any activity on Long Island?
No,
Good
I
question.
did make sure to actually zoom out. I'm not purposely cutting that off there. It was so far zoomed out already. But I did verify, nope, that there was nothing down in that area. So I wasn't leaving anybody out.
So remember, that's cover crops under our programs, right? It doesn't mean that they're not cover cropping down on Long Island, just not with CRF or Agnon Point. Yep. But it'd be interesting if that is a gap, we could really zoom in on that, through other funding mechanisms, or if the district's got knowledge and a report, encompasses all of the knowledge of what's happening across the farms, regardless of funding programs. So, be interesting.
Hi, Brian. This is Paul Kaczmarzyk.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of stood out on the maps to me was that there was nothing in the Lake Champlain Basin. I don't know if there's anything in the pipeline up there. I can't recall from Agnon Point source.
Wow. Paul, that was a good setup. There is. Is Ryan on the line? Ryan, you want to address that question?
Hey, yeah, good morning. I am here. I just saw in the chat here that Chaz and Karina also addressed that specifically. There's a lot of work being done in the Lake Champlain Basin. Sometimes if it's federal dollars coming over, it's maybe not tracked as well as we're tracking the Agnon Point CRF. But I also don't know what the cutoff date is here too, because in recent years, since I've been covering this region, since 2018, there's a lot of ongoing contracts and 3-year terms that are sort of continuously being implemented. So it might be something that's excluded from this particular map.
Tyler, we have these as completed projects, right?
Correct.
So yeah, they wouldn't be.
That's part of it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think you can see here too, I'm kind of monitoring the chat at the same time. Chaz, Karina, and Pete from Clinton County have mentioned that not only is it Agnon Point, it's a lot of Part C, small cover crop programs that go through district aid. So there's a lot of things that sometimes some of these overall glimpses of the state just kind of miss along the way, which is fine, but there is a lot of ongoing work going.
And Ryan, you also want to just take a minute. We'll talk a little bit about the cover crop program that we're going to be working with the Quickney counties.
Sure. Yeah. In the last couple of years, we've been looking at doing some sort of direct funding from the sort of the initial budgets from Lake Champlain, which is federal dollars from EPA, and it's routed directly through our partners at DEC, and then to Quickney, which is the Champlain Watershed Initiative of New York. It includes 5 counties up in the Champlain Basin. This one in particular has $200,000 directed just to cover crops over the next 2 planting seasons. So that's going to look like something like 2,000 acres in the next couple of years. So there are things, of course, that are not included in this that are sort of ongoing, and I think the North Country districts would agree with that too. Yeah.
And Scott also just mentioned USC has a successful cover crop program, again, that's funded with different resources. Part of our challenge is going to be trying to bring all of those together into a comprehensive data system so that we can analyze fully. I think that is really going to be important as we move forward. Certainly is, the previous discussion we had about the Climate Resilient Soil Health Act, just so that we can really, be able to analyze accomplishments across various funding sources, various programs, whether they're state, federal, or local. As mentioned here, districts have got resources that they're bringing to bear on these issues too locally that wouldn't appear in these particular program reports. Great question, Paul and Ryan. Thank you for that. Scott and everyone else, and in the chat.
Real quick, I just saw a question. So it is not a glitch how they're sliding into Vermont or into Pennsylvania. It's just capturing the whole Huck 12. Obviously, we're implementing within the state. I just didn't do a clip. I guess I should have.
All good. Great question.
Make sure. I think that's it.
Say Clinton County Soil and Water always has social media posts about their cover crop programs.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
No amendments, right?
We do not have any amendments for CRF this month.
give a quick update on round 6 and 7.
Sure, so we announced round 6 on September 22nd, which was 2 days after our last meeting. So we shifted straight from the meeting into making awards. And we're working right now to get a plan of work memo sent out and then hopefully have a plan of work webinar in conjunction with Ag Nonpoint. And award letters have been sent out, but we're waiting to hear back from the Department of Budget to see if we can expend return funds to avoid awarding partial awards. So when we hear back, we will send out the remaining award letters, but that's why no one has received we will send out the remaining award letters and the non-award letters, and that's why no one's seen a non-award letter yet. And then for round 7, before Jennifer left on maternity leave, we had a series of focus group meetings where we heard some really valuable feedback, really valuable information. And we will be discussing, like Bethany said, the round 7 RFP, we will be discussing at the tech meeting.
Perfect, thank you. And just a quick report on Jennifer. Jennifer and baby boy Zephyr are doing great. Did have a chance to talk with her after news of the Climate Smart Commodities Award from USDA. And I'm looking forward to the day when she comes back, and we'll also be able to pick up with the RFP from the work that she did with it just before maternity leave. So great stuff. And thank you to Abigail for everything you've done to pick up and support this program in her absence and work with me as acting program manager.
Anxiously awaiting Jennifer's return.
Wow, doing a wonderful job. Thank you. That concludes the CRF program report, Dale, unless there's any other questions or comments.
Great. Next on the agenda is voting a step advisory reports.
It's freezing up a little.
We'll start.
Dale, it was so good for so long, but you're freezing up a little bit, Dale. Oh.
It's too early for the heat.
That's right, yeah, it's not November yet. All right, in Dale's absence, while he works on his connectivity, I guess we can start.
There we go.
You're back on. Albany was off for a second.
Okay.
Okay.
You
Erica?
were off for us too.
Yeah. I had an orange triangle warning line in your Albany. I don't know what was going on there. Anything to report, Erica?
Nothing to report.
Bethany?
Scott, anything to report?
Nope. Oh, I'm sorry. You're doing voting members first. My apologies,
Yeah,
Dale. I
I'm
was
gonna do
going
the
to
voting members first, and I'll come back to it, and then I'll let you take over and do everybody else.
Perfect.
Dave,
Thank you.
you still there? Dave, you still there? You got anything to report?
He may be muted.
His line's
But I
on,
can't
but he
unmute
probably
him.
can't hear me. Okay, I'll turn it back to you to go through everybody else.
Okay, thank you. Bethany?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Dustin?
Yeah, we had our recent administrative conference, brought that back after several years, it had good reception, people seem to enjoy it quite a bit. I think it's definitely needed, something we just haven't had in a while, and our administrative staff was clamoring for it, so hopefully we'll continue it going into the next year, next fall, and we can work with everybody and state committee folks that help with presentations. We're greatly appreciated. And we've got Water Quality Symposium just about all buttoned up as far as class lists. And hopefully we'll see the announcement for that come out early December, so we can get people signing up. We got to keep a good eye on our numbers this year, because I'm expecting a very high sign-up rate. So there may be some limitations on numbers of people attending certain classes when we didn't have to do that in the past.
Wow.
So
Great problem to
if
have.
you're interested, sign up early. And again, thanks for all the help with the trainings and the teaching and instructing at those classes from state committee and also all of our partners as well.
That's awesome, Dustin. And sorry that we had the conflict with the state committee meeting in September. Vic, Scott, and others were able to attend the administrative conference, and we do have a list of things that we're following up on, and probably will touch on at managers meeting, which is looking more and more like it could happen. So,
I'm looking forward to it.
yep. Thank you, Dustin. Kyle?
Also, thanks.
Elizabeth? Scott again, give you another shot.
NYACD, board meetings tonight out in Casanova, and the meeting starts tomorrow.
All right, be there. Beautiful time of year to be in Casanova. Thank you.
Yeah, a quick update on the municipal planning grants. We are opening that program up for villages and cities if they want to take a closer look at removing barriers to agriculture within their jurisdiction. Please reach out to me, and that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Nothing further from me.
Ben?
I'll just say with state aid to districts, the Part B requests are due November 1st. They're trickling in. I have around 20 of them so far. Also, if you want to revise the 2022 requests, you can do that all the way through the end of the calendar year. I've been receiving quite a few of those as well. Annual plan of works are due November 1st. Those are trickling in, I think, to all the regional AEAs. So we're reviewing those and giving some feedback. So we'll be able to have the voting members approve those at the November and December meetings. Other than that, kind of business as usual, a lot of site visits, a lot of in-person board meetings, but all good things.
Part C?
Part C?
We had talked about, we probably need to put that on the agenda for November.
Correct. Yep. And we're also talking if we have managers meeting, touching on it.
Yep.
Managers meeting as well.
Absolutely. Just to kind of give a little bit of a preview to Part C, we've had internal discussions, and we'll probably bring a recommendation to the committee to essentially reestablish the program pre-COVID, but not change any of the other parameters and
correct
variables of the Part C matrix.
Right. That would just mean that for performance measure 1 and 5, since COVID hit, they went to essentially 0%. So if a district did not complete those, they weren't worth any financial, there was no financial implications. But yes, for 2023, we're looking at reinstating those back to the pre-COVID measures, and then to have discussions regarding 2024 about increasing some of the performance measures, what the requirements would be, maybe making things a little bit more higher achievement levels, we'll say, for 2024. But we'll be having those discussions and get districts involved in those conversations and bring it to the committee. So, yep.
Thank you, Ben.
Sure.
Okay. I'll just take the mic here for another minute and just give a quick update on the CLCPA, Climate Action Council. Been able to assist the commissioner in those duties, attending some Climate Action Council meetings in his stead. The Climate Action Council continues to receive report outs from the various sectors in relation to public comments and ongoing work and deliberation specific to certain items for which the Climate Action Council has entered into subgroup discussions to get into a little bit more detail. So alternative fuels, economy-wide strategies, gas transitions. We just heard a report out from the transportation panel or sector again in relation to clean fuel standards. So that work is still ongoing through at least the end of the year at the pace that it currently is, where the scoping plan needs to be approved by law by January 1st of 2023. How that impacts our staff here, we're also working very hard to complete our red line edits in keeping with the public comments and some of the ongoing discussions that have occurred since our draft was made public last year. That will conclude this week, and we'll be presenting those red line edits along with other sectors in the next couple of Climate Action Council meetings. So we'll be really quite pleased to have that part of the process behind us, so we can really again focus on implementation.
Brian,
think,
when do you think we would be required or start working on moving forward with new ideas or programs to meet that climate action law, like reforestation,
Yeah.
for example?
Sure. So if you look at a lot of it, I mean, we certainly are running already, hitting the ground running with implementation of numerous strategies that are indicated in the draft scoping plan. Reforestation, afforestation goals specifically. Again, there are programs and elements that are out already in regards to those strategies. We have ongoing discussions with the Division of Land and Forest at DEC, just to again bring the district workforce into these areas. In a lot of districts that's already happening. How can we do more? How can we make sure that we are very much part of the local initiatives that are happening? So stay tuned, but I will also say that with the Climate Smart Commodities grant, we started to meet interagency between Ag and Markets and DEC Division of Land and Forest, and we'll also be putting the finer points on that scope of work by the end of this year as well. So with meetings with USDA, determine how we move forward with that project. So I think that will also be a catalyst for getting a lot of the work done at the ground level, including the forestry work. So a lot of it we're already doing, but there's a lot that we also can we can be expanding into certain roles. But I'd say once that scoping plan is final, we know exactly what those strategies are. We have to really start to think about advancing our programs and our workforce and all of that, in order to meet those targets. Great question, Dale. I think that concludes everybody here in this room. As we normally do, Dale, do you want me to just kind of go down through the advisory members, see if there's any other reports?
Please.
Okay. DEC, Julie, if you're still on, anything to report?
I still am. Yeah, so no big updates. I'm just working with Ryan Cunningham a bit on getting some contracts out for the Lake Champlain watershed. So.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for your partnership in those areas, Julie. Anything else? Okay. Department of Health, start with Paul and then Ashley. Paul, do you have anything?
No, nothing specific. For the Department of Health, I would say one thing. It'll be great to have this short-term storage in the BMP catalog, because particularly in Delaware County, where we've had the biggest trends for the last 20 years in the county by far is seeing small dairies convert to beef operations, and that can be quite expensive, as herd size grows, to building storages that have 6 months worth of storage. And even if we put more money, if the city puts more money toward, the ag programs, we've found that we're limited by the amount of contractors in the watershed, how much work can get done, on an annual basis. And of course, COVID really mucked that up. So it'd be nice to have one more tool in the toolbox.
Paul, thank you for those comments. Really helpful. Ashley, you're still with us?
Yes, I'm still here. Thank you, Brian. An update from the Drinking Water Source Protection team, which I co-lead with DEC. We have about 40 plans in the works. These are communities that volunteer to participate in this program. We're reviewing quite a few plans that are coming in, which is very exciting, and I'm happy to report that many of the implementation strategies that are outlined in these plans include collaborations with the soil and water conservation districts and point to the AIM framework. And it's exciting to see, and I'm excited to see, for those relationships that are already established that we're laying the foundation for that. So it's exciting, and we're looking forward to reviewing more plans. Like I said, we should have about 40 by the end of the year. And also a quick update on Owasco's proposed watershed rules and regulations. They've been, DOH is still in the review process, and obviously Ag and Markets and DEC have been a big part of that review process, and we're excited to see where that goes. There's several more meetings scheduled before the review is complete, but I know that everyone's kind of anxiously waiting to see how those unfold, because I know it will impact much of the work done in the districts, and looking forward to the conversations happening towards the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, so next on my list I have Julie from Cornell Cows, but I might have saw her drop off the call, but not sure if she's back.
Nope, she's gone.
Okay. All right. NRCS, Paula?
Good morning, Paula Bagley here. The only update I have, or more of a reminder, is that New York NRCS's programs application cutoff is coming up on November 4th for this next sign up. So I'll post in our chat here a link to, I guess, the announcement, just as a reminder of people getting in applications.
Thank you, Paula. We'll make sure we put that link in the minutes as well. Appreciate that.
Sorry about my voice. I'm in the same boat as Ron.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And be well. Thank you. Okay, I believe that's all the advisory members, unless there have been any that logged on after our roll call this morning. Am I missing anyone? Okay, I'm not going to run through the entire staff list, but any other staff that are on the line, if you've got a report for the committee, you can take your phone off mute and go ahead and give your report.
Brian, everyone, good morning still. This is Greg Albrecht, and just on the training theme, I want to give a big thanks and hats off to the Conservation District Employees Association for another really robustly attended conservation skills workshop. If you look at the agenda, it covered all sort of resource areas and management areas on farms, with stream corridor and farmsteads, pastures, fields, even cropland, and even renewable energy. And really brought in, I know at least for the ones that our staff was involved with, higher than normal attendance. And part of Cornell, NRCS, districts, farmers, and of course our staff. So really, really awesome effort. And on the looking to the future, hopefully folks saw an announcement about the recently released agenda and schedule for the 2022 Northeast Region Certified Crop Advisor Training. That's coming up on November 29th and 30th in person in Syracuse. And then the second half of it will be held virtually on December 13th and 14th. And, you know, with this in-person opportunity, it allows us to do a better job on the basic track, in addition to the standard advanced track. And that basic track is really helpful and critical for newer staff across entities and agencies that are pursuing their certified crop advisor certification. So I'll put that link in the chat, and appreciate the time.
Greg, thank you very much. I will also note with the Conservation Skills Workshop, lots of new faces. And nothing against the old faces. Every face is great to see in person for sure, but to see a lot of new district employees was really rewarding and refreshing. It was great. Thank you, Greg.
Ryan, it's Ron again. As far as training, I also wanted to mention during Conservation Skills Workshop, a class was canceled. It was the nutrient management and soil health planning skills. kind of circled around spreader calibrations and sampling for soil health, soil nutrients, and manure nutrients. A lot of the similar topics and concepts that we talked about earlier this morning, that has been rescheduled for October 27th. And that announcement was sent to all of the participants that recently registered. We're going to give them the first shot at, deciding if they want to come, and if there's opportunities to expand that, we may do that. So I just wanted to make that announcement.
Thank you, Ron. Other staff? I think that was long enough pause. How about conservation districts that are with us today? Anything to report or any questions to ask of the committee? Okay, thank you. And any members of the public, any guests joining us here today over the phone and via WebEx, if there's anything that you'd like to comment or ask of the committee, now's your chance. Okay. All right, Dale, I think that concludes our voting staff advisory district and public reports.
Great. Thank you very much. Next meeting is proposed for November 15th. How's that look for everybody?
So far, so good for me.
Okay. I know it's right around the corner, but I really am trying to stick at least with our proposed dates of the third Tuesday of every month, just to try to stay on a consistent schedule.
Aaron, what do you think?
Looks good so far.
Okay. Erica?
Erica just had to leave, but I'll make sure that she saw that and is okay with it. We'll probably do something. We'll probably do something similar, with an Albany location. We do want to continue to explore the state fairgrounds as a central Western New York location. But as long as other voting members, if they have got conflicts of being able to travel to any of those locations and are able to, have a public location where they're at, we can continue to do that as well. And thanks to Jefferson County Soil and Water District as well to host a public location for us. But, just as a reminder, we do have to have physical locations open to the public in addition to this WebEx, which I think, is a really great hybrid model so that we can continue to encourage remote participation, our conservation partners and members of the public.
Yeah, if we can get the Syracuse open again, it would help. The other option is, can we meet at the Utica State Building again sometime?
Yep, and we can certainly do that. I think if we did that, it would be an in-person option.
Yeah.
Only maybe with a WebEx connection like we did at Warren County last month, just because we have to kind of explore their capacity as well. But it is a state office building, so everybody had to adapt over the last couple of years. But that was a nice location for us too.
Okay, next meeting right now is proposed November 15th. That's where we will be. Meet. Anything else anyone wants to bring up or comments?
Just that I'll note that we're ending about 40 minutes ahead of schedule, so good job, team.
Staff did a great job. Hey, meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much for everyone participating.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.